We live in a world where evil deeds are done on a relatively regular basis on any given day. However, even with this frequency, there are some cases of crimes that tend to completely rock our understanding of what is acceptable and what is simply diabolical. The murder of Lisa Holm is one such incident. It was equal parts shocking and insane, and as more facts kept coming out about what happened and who was responsible, an entire country ended up being absolutely stunned by this case. In this video, we'll look into the devastating death of Lisa Holm, as well as the circumstances and details that surrounded it. Lisa Helena Holm was born on the 7th of February 1998 in Skövde, a small town in the central southern part of Sweden. It was a small, quaint little town where Lisa lived with her parents and her older sister. Lisa was known to be a kind-hearted and well-loved person. She was an avid traveler and she had a passion for architecture. Besides this, Lisa was also said to have been a very independent young woman, and all through her teenage years, she worked several part-time jobs so she could make some money and not rely on her parents for little things she wanted. Before the summer of 2015, when Lisa was just 17, she hit her first major job, landing a position at a cafe in Blomberg. The small town was close to Kelby in Västergötland, and it was about a 40-minute drive from her family home. For the first few weeks, Lisa would hitch a ride to her workplace with her parents. But ever the independent young lady, she soon decided that it'd be better and more convenient to make the daily commute on her own. Her father got her a scooter to make the journey much easier, plus she was only 17 and maybe not ready for the responsibilities of a car. Now, in the earlier periods of her employment, Lisa's father still accompanied her on her commute since she didn't have any experience traveling around on her own. This went on until June 7, 2015, when her parents decided to come visit her at work around lunchtime. The cafe was a bit crowded, but Lisa managed to steal herself away for a bit and was able to enjoy a lunch with her parents. They left her to work the rest of her shift and headed home, letting Lisa drive herself home without following her father's company for the first time. Around 6:23 in the evening, Lisa texted her father that she was done with work and was headed home, and this would be where things would start to unravel. About 3 minutes after she texted him, Lisa's father explained that he received a call from her. He picked up, but no one responded to him on the other end of the call. As he explained, he heard some voices in the background, including people talking and what sounded like a car door slamming shut. Initially, he thought that she must have dialed his number by accident or something. I think we can all agree that that happens all the time. Nevertheless, he called Lisa's name a few times and didn't get a response. So he ended the call and went back to waiting for her to get home. This time, Lisa hadn't come home. An hour passed, and Lisa's parents began to worry that something was wrong. She should have been home already. Did she make a wrong turn? Maybe she got a flat tire. Considering that this was probably the first time Lisa would be riding alone on her scooter for that commute, you can imagine how worried her father had automatically become. He called her a few times, but this time, her phone was off. Worried sick, Lisa's father immediately hit the road, hoping to meet her on the route he was so familiar with. He drove at an incredibly slow pace, but Lisa was nowhere to be found. When he eventually got to the cafe where she worked, and he noticed that her scooter was parked right in front of the building. He initially thought that maybe she had been delayed at work, but he scanned everywhere and found no one in or around the cafe. To make things worse, taking a closer look at the scooter, he noticed that Lisa's keys were in the scooter's ignition, with her helmet hanging from its handle. The sight of the helmet and keys on Lisa's scooter sent her father into a heated panic to his core. He immediately thought that something had happened. He called his wife and asked her to call the cafe's owner and see if they could provide some answers or some clarity about where Lisa could be. Still, the owner explained that she had no idea where Lisa was. As she claimed, the owner had called the cafe around 6:30 and they told her that they were already closing for the day. The cafe's owner, as well as 4 of Lisa's friends, made their way to the cafe where they joined Lisa's father and searched the area for her. They hoped that for some reason, Lisa would have chosen to take the bus instead of a scooter. But they checked the bus routes and schedule. No one could find a trace of Lisa. Lisa's parents eventually contacted the police, reporting that Lisa had gone missing. The police immediately launched an investigation, quickly believing that Lisa had been abducted. Cases like these are pretty rare in Sweden, so the police took the incident very seriously. They dispatched search dogs and officers around the area, searching everywhere and asking questions of the locals. Lisa's classmates and friends also played their part in searching for her, spreading information about her sudden disappearance on social media, hoping to get attention and spread awareness about what was going on. Surely someone has to have seen her. The search went on for about 2 days, when a man who came to work at the barn right across the cafe found a motorcycle glove on the floor. Thankfully, he reported it to the police, who then showed it to Lisa's parents. It was confirmed that the glove indeed belonged to Lisa, further bolstering the abduction theory. Additional resources were deployed to search the area, and interestingly, more materials were found. The search team found Lisa's cell phone case, tickets, receipts, and several other items belonging to Lisa. By this point, it was pretty obvious that Lisa had indeed been abducted, and in time, the search for Lisa became the largest search operation in Sweden's modern history, with over 1,000 people joining the efforts to find her. On June 10th, the search area was extended. That same day, someone found a pair of earrings in the barn, as well as her license card for the scooter and the keys to her home. 2 days after that, a search organization looked through the Martorp estate, located just a few kilometers from the cafe. However, 2 men suddenly arrived at the estate by car. The 2 claimed that the area had already been searched. Members of the search efforts became suspicious. They hadn't heard anything about the estate being searched. If it were, wouldn't they have heard about it? After some discussion, they stayed and continued the search. They also called to notify the police. According to reports, the 2 men walked around the area of the estate, watching the volunteers for a short while before driving away. Volunteers and police officers collaborated to search the area, and about 2 hours into the search, they found a pile of branches just behind the cowshed. Under this pile, they found a motorcycle helmet, headphones, and a jacket that were all confirmed to belong to Lisa. Investigators called forensic experts to assist in the area, and they also heard the story about the 2 strange men who were trying to dissuade volunteers from searching the area where Lisa's belongings happened to be discovered. With a separate incident about a man who had been suspiciously moving around the area also being reported to officials, the police began to get an idea of who might have been involved in Lisa's abduction. From the first days of the search, the police had visited all the houses near the cafe. In one of those houses, there lived 2 brothers from Lithuania, along with the wife of one of the men. None of them spoke Swedish, and they were the only people across several miles who never spoke the local language. Even more curious, one of the brothers was confirmed to have worked at the farm where Lisa's helmet was found. They were very familiar with these locations, and the dirt road where several of Lisa's items were found quite literally was the road that led to their house. The police decided to question the brothers, while forensic experts and volunteers arrived at the barn and continued to search for more clues. Their attention was soon turned to an old trailer. It looked very worn, as if it hadn't been used for many years. But the grass next to its door was flattened, as if something had recently been lying there. As soon as the forensic experts opened the door, they were instantly greeted by a very strong smell of decay and decomposition. Inside the trailer, they found several lockers filled with clothing. All of these lockers were locked, save for one. So, the experts began opening each of the lockers. In one of the lockers, hidden behind a pile of old clothes and rags, forensic experts discovered the remains of Lisa Holm's body. Despite the locker's relatively small size, the perpetrator had managed to contort and stuff her body into it and lock it up. Lisa still had a rope around her neck, as well as a large amount of duct tape over her head. Her pants had been pulled down and her shirt had been pulled up. An autopsy found that Lisa had died from strangulation. They didn't find any signs of sexual assault, but it was clear that Lisa had a struggle with the perpetrator prior to her demise. The news of Lisa's brutal murder shook the entirety of Sweden. Crimes like these were very rare in the country, and the public was stunned that someone could perform such a terrible act. At the time Lisa's body was discovered, investigators had already brought in the two brothers and the woman for questioning. They all denied having anything to do with the murder, and they provided alibis for themselves. Still, the police collected DNA samples. They still couldn't find any evidence linking them to the murder, but they weren't entirely ruled out yet. The focus of the investigation was quickly brought back to the area of the cafe where Lisa was last seen. You see, in the barn, there was a small, office-like room that had a large window overlooking the cafe. Upon examining the room, forensic experts discovered 15 different samples of male semen on the floor. Experts hypothesized that someone must have been standing there, watching the cafe employees, including Lisa, while pleasuring themselves. The semen samples were quickly sent to the lab, and all of them matched the DNA of the older of the two Lithuanian brothers, 35-year-old Nerijus Bilevičius. In the next room, which had previously been used to store cow's milk, forensic experts also discovered a pipe about 2 feet off the floor. The pipe was covered in a thick layer of dust, except for one small strip of an area. The size of this strip perfectly matched the rope that was used to strangle Lisa. Traces of blood were also found on the pipe, and DNA examinations confirmed that they also belonged to Nerijus. On the floor beneath the pipe, experts discovered a piece of the same rope. They examined it, identifying 2 DNA samples, one matching with Lisa, the other with Nerijus. Furthermore, a hair belonging to Lisa was found on the floor of the same room. And to round things out, DNA traces belonging to Nerijus were found on Lisa's jacket. With all of this evidence, police were able to piece together a sequence of events. It is proposed that Nerijus must have been watching Lisa from the window, then he approached her when she was alone. From there, he must have lured her into his car under some sort of ruse. Do you think he asked her for directions? Do you think he played on her youth and naivete and convinced her he needed her help? After getting her into the car, he would have taped her mouth shut with the duct tape and driven her into the barn. At the barn, Nerijus must have wrapped the rope around her neck and hung her from the pipe. When she died, he placed Lisa's body in the car, driving her to the farm, throwing all of her stuff out the window along the way. He got to the trailer, stuffed Lisa's body in the locker, and abandoned her there. According to the estimated timeline, everything, from abduction to killing, must have taken less than an hour. Despite all of this, Nerijus continued to insist that he was innocent. The police released his wife and younger brother, who immediately left Sweden and returned to Lithuania. The trial preparation was intense, with Nerijus claiming that his DNA was all over the barn because he had worked there for many years. His wife and brother also provided an alibi for him, but the evidence against him was just too great. Besides his DNA being all over Lisa's items, police also found a man who testified that he saw Nerijus's car near the cafe both before and after Lisa's abduction. This witness claimed that Nerijus's car traveled around the cafe several times, around the same period when Nerijus claimed to have been sleeping at home as part of his alibi. For months, experts continued to examine Lisa's body and her items, and they found even more traces of Nerijus's DNA, including in her underwear. Eventually, the police were able to get an answer out of Nerijus's brother. He claimed that contrary to the alibi his wife had given, Nerijus had actually not been at home that day. Instead, the story is that Nerijus got home around 7:30 p.m. and was covered in dirt. Nerijus immediately threw all of his clothes into the washing machine, and when he saw that the police had begun searching and questioning everyone, asked his younger brother to lie on his behalf. A month after her body was found, Lisa's funeral was organized, and 4 months later, the trial commenced. Nerijus was caught, dead to rights, And even though his lawyer tried to spin the narrative, it just didn't work. Following a month of testimonies and counter-testimonies, Neregius was eventually found guilty of the murder of Lisa Holm. He was sentenced to life in a high-security prison, and in 2017, he was deported to his home country. As it appeared, his deportation meant that he could get a lighter sentence in Lithuania, and he did. His sentence was cut from life in prison to just 15 years. And although Lithuanian prisons were much worse than those in Sweden, he at least had the hope of getting out. Well, this hope was short-lived, as it turned out. Neregius was frequently harassed by other inmates in the Lithuanian prison he was deported to, and the harassment escalated so badly that on August 3, 2022, Neregius was stabbed in the neck by a fellow inmate with a makeshift knife. He suffered such extensive injuries from the attack that he died on the way to the hospital. The case of Lisa Holm was one of the most egregious in all of Sweden's history. The circumstances were especially heinous, and to date, many in the country remain stunned that any man was able to commit such an act against a bright, innocent young lady. Ultimately, justice was served, and although the perpetrator wasn't sentenced to die, things seem to have taken the proper course nonetheless. As we continue to unravel the mysteries of true crime, your support drives us forward. Remember to subscribe and hit the notification bell to stay with us as we delve into the darkest corners of true crime. Until next time, stay vigilant, stay curious, and keep chasing cases.